This straight up super team needs to be stopped. I'm referring to Mexico, that is, who are going crazy right now. Meanwhile, Haaland's Norway break Cote d'Ivoire hearts, and Spurs drop £85 million on a player relegated twice in a row? This is DMAC Daily. Guys, what have we just witnessed today? I mean, seriously, that performance from France was so outrageously good to the point where I'm starting to suspect that the Socceroos might not actually win this thing. Okay, maybe that's a little too extreme for now. In Papa we trust. But damn, bro, these French lads made a knockout World Cup tie against a good team look like a training session. I think everyone was blown away with the attacking prowess on full display today, but realistically, should we really be surprised? Like, their World Cup credentials in their past two tournaments have been clear for all to see, yet their 2026 squad was arguably better on paper, at least from an attacking standpoint. And I understand, football is not won on paper, but the group stages made it abundantly clear that any concerns about egos or too many big names being able to gel together ought to be swept aside, as their dark horse threats became relatively light work, with Mbappe at his scintillating best, as was Dembele, as was Elise. 14 goal involvements between the pair in the group stages alone. Like, I'm sorry, that's just unfair. The fact that a guy like Cherki barely featured was an indication of just how freakish this forward line actually is. So I didn't anticipate that Sweden were going to give them significant problems today. After all, this same team got battered by a Koeman Netherlands side. But in saying that, you gotta feel for Potter's men off the back of today, because they really didn't do much wrong. Like, they were organized throughout defensively, they didn't make many mistakes, their keeper was in top form too, but unfortunately, so were France. In the first half, they largely managed to keep them at bay. That Elise to Mbappe disallowed goal, by the narrowest of margins, was a precursor to the inevitable beatdown that was looming. For me, Sweden's best performer in that first half was the woodwork, denying Mbappe first before that mind-boggling Elise bicycle kick. The audacity to even attempt this, by the way, ridiculous. Elise was peppering the goal at that point. Something had to give. Sweden did so well to hold them out this long, but the breakthrough finally arrived. An intricate short corner, Elise to Dembele to Mbappe, and France's superstar did the rest. The trickery, the explosivity of the movements, and then the finish on top. That was peak Mbappe. It was a nice gesture too, immediately running to Deschamps to celebrate. But anyways, 1-0, Sweden are still within reach, but any notion of a comeback was quickly ruled out in the second half when Elise said enough is enough, picking up the ball in space, playing a genius through ball through the legs of Lagerbielke, and Barcola reminded everyone, hey, I'm a freaking baller too, by the way. Top finish from the winger. Elise kept on carving out goal-scoring opportunities, and the third and final blow would arrive shortly after. Elise orchestrating half a yard of space before pulling off the most perfectly weighted defense-splitting pass, finding Mbappe, who timed his run to perfection, by the way, and gave the keeper no chance. 18 goals in 18 World Cup games, his 8th involvement in 4 appearances in 2026's tournament. I now fear he's reached a new level of dominance on the world stage with his new partner in crime, Elise. The ruthless precision at which these two operate, my goodness, it's almost like a telepathic understanding of one another. What a privilege it is to watch these guys kick a football, to watch this entire France team, really, because everyone in that starting 11 was tremendous. Defensively solid, Tchouaméni and Rabiot dictating the pace in midfield, and a forward line in complete flow state. The fact that the current Ballon d'Or winner was probably the least influential player in that front four today tells you everything you need to know. Full transparency, prior to this tournament, I actually tipped Spain to win, but my mind is fully changed because I would be stunned if France don't win it now. I know they're yet to face a traditional powerhouse country, but I just can't foresee anyone stopping them. This is the best looking France team I've ever seen, and I don't think this is solely the byproduct of a prime Mbappe, right? Don't get me wrong, he's at the peak of his powers and well on track for World Cup immortality, especially if he goes on to win it in 2026. He is the face of France, but I genuinely believe that Elise is just as, if not even more integral to this team, because Mbappe's the killer and Elise is the creative heartbeat, now more than ever in the number 10 role, which is interesting because in France's Opa v Senegal, Elise was operating on the right flank with Dembele occupying that 10 role, and it was a mess. France created nothing, they looked disjointed, but Deschamps' decision to then move Elise into the 10 has resulted in this same team becoming a non-stop chance-creating machine. Everyone is thriving. Without Elise, I don't think France are the same beast. So good luck, Paraguay. I know you guys got that dog in you, but beating a bang average Germany is one thing. Prime France, now that's a whole different ball game. I don't think any amount of harambe tactics can prevent these guys from scoring. Although, you never know in football, this France glaze could inevitably come back to haunt me in a couple days' time. Separate note though, we cannot let Madrid sign Elise for any amount of money, by the way. We head next to one of the spiritual homes of world football, the iconic Estadio Azteca, as Mexico have delivered another statement result on the world stage, making relatively light work of Ecuador 2-0, their fourth straight win of the tournament, having yet to concede a single goal. No longer now are El Tri on the quest for Quinto Partido, it's now Sexto Partido, the sixth game this football-obsessed nation has firmly in its sights. Now, if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about here, well, basically in 1986, Mexico reached the quarterfinal stages of the World Cup, the fifth game. Then, in their following 7 World Cup campaigns, they were knocked out in the round of 16, followed by a group stage exit in 2022. So in 2026, there was a huge pressure on this side to deliver. But Aguirre's side have impressed all tournament. Despite not playing incredible football in the group stages, they were flawless, 3 wins from 3, but today would be the first huge test, coming up against an Ecuador side that started slow, but then came from behind to defeat Germany on the final group stage match and would have been very confident themselves of a result today. But this Mexico team then proceeded to stun everyone because they were phenomenal. That first half in particular today, they completely overwhelmed their South American opponents, and I gotta give praise off the jump to Aguirre for entrusting in their prodigious talent Gilberto Mora, 17 years of age, and pulling the strings in the heart of midfield, creating so effortlessly in that half space on the right side. Even though the guy is small in stature, he is going right to the top. But to focus on Mora alone is somewhat unfair, right? Because like France a couple hours earlier, the entire team was balling out, and 20 minutes in, Alvarado played in Quiñones, who timed his run to perfection, squared up his man before smashing it past the keeper at his near post. His third goal of the tournament. It must be said though, defensively speaking, this was a terrible goal to concede, with Ecuador's entire defense pushed up beyond the halfway line. And there was more woeful defending where that came from, as Ordóñez carelessly gave the ball away to Jimenez, who put it through Caicedo's legs, got the ball back, and fired into the top right corner. A special moment for Mexico's number 9. From there on out, it was always going to be a mountain to climb, overturning a 2-goal deficit against a team yet to concede all tournament. Ecuador had a few chances, Yeboah testing Rangel before halftime, but that moment turned out to be Ecuador's best chance, as Mexico basically breezed to victory. In fact, they looked the more likely to score with their 2-0 lead intact. A disastrous day for Ecuador, and it would get worse for them later on when Hincapié stupidly put his hand behind his mouth and clearly said something provocative to Jimenez, resulting in number 3, cover his mouth, decision red card. Brilliant commentary, and there can be no complaints with the defeat as Mexico advanced to the long-awaited 5th game. However, as it's an expanded tournament, it's still technically the round of 16 they've now made, so they're going for the 6th match, and just quietly, I think there's every chance they accomplish it. The English are already getting ahead of themselves, preparing for this match in advance. My advice is focus on the DR Congo first, but if they do inevitably win that, good luck taking on this Mexico side at the Azteca. That is a terrifying proposition. We head next to Dallas as Haaland's Norway have prevailed 2-1 over fellow dark horse nation Cote d'Ivoire, with who else but the Viking, the robot, the superstar of Norwegian football, tapping home the match winner. Now this clash was always going to be a banger, with Norway's golden generation going toe-to-toe with an exciting new era of Cote d'Ivoire talents. Both sides had given a great account of themselves in the group stages already. Norway made light work of Iraq and then got the better of African champions Senegal Senegal. Haaland bagging 4 in his opening 2 World Cup appearances, and sure, they lost 4-1 to France, but that was literally Norway's B team. They made 10 changes that day, so the confidence within was still enormously high. The same could be said for Cote d'Ivoire though, who impressed me in all 3 games. They were incredibly unlucky to lose against Germany, but so many positives nonetheless throughout the group stage. Diomande, Diallo, and Pepe carving up on the wings. Christ Inau-Ulai, their midfield breakout star, and a solid backline to match. One of the most underrated teams, so it's no surprise that this was a fiercely competitive clash. In the first half, I'd say Norway were the marginally better side. It was going to take something special to break the deadlock, and that arrived via the Leipzig wonderkid left winger. No, not Jan Diomande, but rather his club teammate Antonio Nusa, aka the Norwegian Neymar, with a trademark Neymar finish, squaring up his opposite fullback, using that trickery to manufacture that little bit of space on his favoured right foot and curling it home to perfection. What a beautiful goal, the first of his World Cup career. And how's this for a stat? He was the first Norwegian to score in a World Cup knockout match since fellow national Arne Brewster did back against Italy in 1938. A great moment for the 20-year-old starlet. In the second half though, the Elephants ramped up the intensity in search of an equalizer. Pepe testing Nyland in goal before Emers Faye changed up the shape, sacrificing the third midfielder for Diallo, drifting Pepe into that number 10 role. Diallo's impact would be significant, both offensively and defensively too. First clearing Hegem's attempt off the goal line, and then 6 minutes later, down the other end of the pitch, a moment of magic occurred. A quick 1-2 with Pepe before he sent Hegem back to Norway, cutting on his left foot and firing home. What an impact off the bench. The momentum had well and truly shifted at that point, but suddenly out of nowhere, substitute Bob spotted Berg with a ball in behind. He crossed it in the direction of the big man, who'd tap it into an empty net from close range as Norway retook the lead. Truth be told, it was a bit of an awkward finish. He didn't make great contact with the ball, but hey, a goal's a goal. It's now his 5th of the tournament in 3 games. Cote d'Ivoire desperately tried to find an equalizer later on. Diallo coming so close to scoring a screamer free kick in the 95th minute, but Nyland denied the winger with a top save. So Haaland's goal proved to be the difference in a special day for the country of Norway in Dallas. Their first ever triumph in the knockout stages against a top team. They now face Brazil in the round of 16. That's going to be an epic. Obviously, they'll come in as the underdogs, but with a guy like Haaland up top, Ødegaard in behind, the Norwegian Neymar causing havoc down the left flank, they're going to be a handful for Ancelotti Seleção. As for Cote d'Ivoire, brutal to go out in the manner that they did, but so many positives to build on for future tournaments. Bar Morocco, they've been the African side that's impressed me most in the World Cup, so fair play to them. Moving to transfer news now, and in what might be one of the craziest deals of the summer, Tottenham have won the race to sign Matheus Fernandes, paying an absolutely enormous fee, £85 million, to bring the Portuguese midfielder in from West Ham. When I saw this come through on my feed, I was genuinely astounded when you take into account the finances involved in the deal, but beyond that, the fact that Spurs actually won the race to one of the more sought-out midfielders currently on the market. Because think about it, some big clubs were sniffing about. Arsenal, Real Madrid, City, and PSG had all been linked, alongside Man United, of course, who were heavily pushing for the central midfielder. Having missed out on Elliot Anderson, he appeared to be the alternative option they so desperately craved, but in the end, Spurs have done something we're not all that used to seeing. They've shown genuine financial muscle to blow everyone else out of the race. I gotta say, the squad overhaul that is currently taking place in North London right now is fascinating. After flirting with disaster last season and narrowly avoiding relegation, they have come into this window with a completely different level of urgency, right? Jan-Paul van Hecke has already arrived in a huge deal from Brighton. They've added experience through free transfers, Marcos Senesi and Andy Robertson. They're currently leading the race for one-away Newcastle midfielder Sandro Tonali, and with Fernandes' imminent arrival, it's apparent that Spurs are willing to spend serious money very early in this window to get this rebuild up and running. I always think it's a good sign when a club is getting deals wrapped up early before July, and I think a player like Fernandes is a promising addition. He's technically excellent, press resistant, he's got good attacking output for a number 8, and has that ball carrying, ball progressing ability that big clubs all look for. Considering he's only 21, there's also ample room for growth. Okay, so I've laid out the positive elements to this deal, but let's not pretend there aren't several question marks to consider here, right? The obvious one is the fee itself, £85 £25 million for Mateus Fernandes is bonkers money. Remember, this is a player who has just been relegated with West Ham, a club he only joined a year ago, having just been relegated with Southampton. So Spurs are paying a club record transfer fee for a midfielder who has been involved in back-to-back Premier League relegations. Now, I'm not suggesting it's a bad transfer. He was one of the few bright sparks in a poor West Ham side this season, and ultimately, I think he improved Spurs. That's the most important thing to consider. This current Spurs midfield is distinctly lacking in the technical department, so Fernandes makes a lot of sense. One could also assume that in a stronger team, his qualities will flourish more than in his previous two clubs. However, until we see him actually deliver at a bigger club, those question marks surrounding his credentials will linger. It doesn't help his case that the transfer market in 2026 is beyond absurd. A talented young central midfielder at a relegated club can now cost more than proven stars did 5 years ago. It's just wild to me that Fernandes was sold to Spurs for more money than what Real Madrid paid for prime CR7 back in 2009. The game is so far gone in the financial department. Apparently his salary is also going to be in the region of 250 grand a week too. So crazy money, but hardly a surprise in today's market. Anyways, legends, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. Appreciate you tuning in as always, and I'll see you tomorrow.